Greetings once again, mortals, and a belated happy day of the East, or whatever it is you mortals call it. In this time of festivities, assuming that's something you celebrate, I was inspired by a post on Reddit to make a video that cataloged all of the Easter eggs and hidden references in the IB series. I also thought it was a good idea to make some videos to bridge the gaps between some of the larger projects I'm working on. Concerning this video, this is part 1 in a 3-part series, where each video will tackle the references in one of the 3 games. For each category of references, I'll try to rank the items from the most obvious to the least. It's also worth mentioning that try as I might to make this series a comprehensive guide, I'll likely miss something. Some things are purposefully left out though, because the reference might be to a proverb or adage that everyone knows and isn't from anything specific, like with many of the achievements. So with that said, let's jump right into the references in the first game. Starting with some interesting non-reference details, we first look at Claymorn. While the namesake of the games may be the Infinity Blade, it's the Claymorn that seemingly appears in the app icons for all 3 games. Nyryx was actually first seen in the trailer for Infinity Blade, and specifically as the weapon wielded by the God King. Was this his primary weapon prior to obtaining the Infinity Blade? Who knows? Forge is really interesting as an item because of the fact that it changes appearance depending on what shield it is paired with when on the character's back. Moving on to actual references, it is from here onwards that we'll start making use of the Infinity Blade User's Manual. Though it is now non-canon to the lore, the descriptions of items reveal quite a bit. In this case, Gemini, described as a twin blade, refers to Castor and Pollux of Greek mythology, who were turned into stars that can now be seen in the constellation of Gemini. Concerning the Sword of Storms, it's unclear if this is a reference to the Song of Storms from The Legend of Zelda, or perhaps Hellboy, Sword of Storms, the 2006 animated film. Either seems likely, given that the Muster brothers have drawn inspiration from both video games and comics. Jawbreaker appears to be an oversized traditional Hawaiian war club called a koa, or leomano. Silver is so named for the 4-member Silver, in honor of his being the first to defeat a level 3000 God King. XSC2 and its dark counterpart both bear the SC2 in their name, which is likely a reference to Shadow Complex 2, the sequel to the original hit Shadow Complex, and the game Chair was working on prior to, and which was paused because of Infinity Blade. For the next 2, He-Man and the Masters of the Universe seems to be the influence. Randor is seemingly a reference to King Randor, and Grey Sun a reference to the Power Sword, or the Sword of Grayskull, the weapon wielded by He-Man. Here it is as the sword appeared in the 1980s cartoon. This is essentially confirmed by the file name for Grayson, where MOTU is an abbreviation for Masters of the Universe. For this last one, Thornblade bears a striking resemblance to this, the Chinese 7-branch sword found in Japan. Starting off here with the Odengard, it's obviously named after Odin, one of the main gods in Norse mythology. Hexen is noteworthy as the only item which sports the Infinity Blade logo. So does this logo have a place in the world of Infinity Blade, or is it a meta reference? Aegis has a few points of reference, with the name meaning protection, but in Greek myth, the Aegis shield was also used by Zeus and Athena. Aegis is also used in Egyptology to refer to a broad collar, with one of the most famous being the Aegis of the goddess Isis. This is interestingly the name that Issa's name was derived from. Terrapin is named after the species of small turtle, a detail confirmed by the item's inventory sprite file name. The Patriot is clearly a colorless version of Captain America's shield, something supported by the description of it as a light but durable shield created long ago from a mixture of unknown alloys. Captain America's shield is also light, durable, and made of a mysterious material. Nash's description says, a legendary shield grown from the horns of the Golden Fleece, a reference to the Golden Fleece acquired by Jason and the crew of the Argonauts in Greek mythology. The first ring is the Zeus loop, a reference to the aforementioned Zeus, god of thunder and lightning. This makes sense given the ring's ability to cast shock magic. Illuminatus' description says, a mystical ring of a long-dead cult who ruled from the shadows. The name and description are likely a reference to the Illuminati, a name given to describe a secret society that supposedly rules the world unseen. Gridiron is only described in the manual as the Ring of Champions, but holds more information in its appearance. For one, the ring bears a similar appearance to the rings given to winners of the Super Bowl in American football. On this note, American football is formally known as gridiron football, due to the visual nature of the field. Also of note are the colors, green and yellow, the official colors of the Green Bay Packers, winners of Super Bowl XLV. Another supporting detail is the item's inventory sprite file name. Finally, the Ring of Fire and Ice is likely a reference to the Song of Fire and Ice, the name of the series of fantasy novels by George R.R. Martin that the Game of Thrones TV series is based off of. Odin's wisdom is of course a reference to the aforementioned Odin from Norse mythology. The Midas helm is another reference to Greek mythology, specifically the character of King Midas, who was able to turn everything he touched into gold. This idea is supported by the helm's ability to increase gold drops. Legion's name and appearance are likely drawn from the helmets worn by officers in Roman legions. Related is the Royal Helm, whose inventory sprite file name is this. Trajan is named after Caesar Nerva Trajanus, a Roman soldier emperor who ruled over the empire from 98 to 117 AD. Oroku is likely a reference to Oroku Saki, also known as Shredder, the main antagonist from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Next, Conqueror bears some resemblance and may have been modeled after the appearance of the Witch King of Angmar from Lord of the Rings. You be the judge. I personally don't think so, considering the item's inventory sprite file name is this. The snake's appearance, especially with the symbol above the eyes, bears a striking resemblance to the appearance of the villain Cobra Commander from the G.I. Joe franchise. This is supported by the item's description, which reads, "The hooded mask worn by the leader of a cult of serpent worshippers intent on ruling the world." Cobra Commander was of course the leader of an organization called Cobra, which sought to rule the world. Looking a little deeper, this reference is confirmed by the name of the item's inventory sprite file, which is this. Phoenix is an unsuspecting name for an item, one that's not too unusual, of course being taken from the mythical creature's name, but the cue for this reference comes from the item's inventory sprite file name, which is this. This is likely a reference to the DC Comics superhero, Hawkman. Adamantine is of course an ancient name for an unbreakable material, but like the previous helm, this one is a point of interest because of its file name. In the game files, the 3D model for this item is under the name of this. Looking at pictures of the characters from this 1986 cartoon, Silverhawks, I guess I could see where some inspiration was drawn from for the helm shape. One unclear reference comes from the Colossal Helm, called the Burt Helm in the files, and in another place, this. Burt is most likely a reference to chair artist Burt Lewis, and the fact that he must have designed this helmet. Perhaps it was originally made for Infinity Blade 2, and put into the first game retroactively. Brushing aside the adamant armor, whose name we touched on briefly, we finally have the Omega set, consisting of the aforementioned XSC2, the Tempest Shield, Fusion Helmet, Omega Armor XOS7, the Cog Ring, and their dark counterparts. The helmet and armor specifically are references to the Omega Armor from Shadow Complex. This is corroborated by the descriptions of these items as a powerful high-tech helmet/suit of armor developed long ago by the Restoration, stolen, then hidden by Jason Fleming, where Jason was the protagonist of Shadow Complex. This is not to mention the SC abbreviation in the armor and helmet inventory sprite file names. "You shall not pass" refers to the same line as spoken by Gandalf, played by Sir Ian McKellen, to the Balrog in 2001's The Lord of the Rings, Fellowship of the Ring.
You shall not pass!
"There is no try" refers to the line spoken by Yoda in the 1985 film Star Wars Episode 5, The Empire Strikes Back.
Try. No. Try not. Do. Or do not. There is no try.
My Preciouses is a reference to the way Gollum from the Lord of the Rings series refers to the One Ring. No, this is Sparta refers to the famous line spoken by King Leonidas, played by Gerard Butler, before he kicks Xerxes' messenger into a pit in the 2006 film 300.
Madness. This is Sparta!
Inconceivable is likely a reference to the oft-spoken line by Vicini in the 1987 film The Princess Bride.
Inconceivable. Inconceivable! Inconceivable!
Inconceivable! Inconceivable! You keep using the word. I don't think it means what you think it means.
Not in Kansas refers to the line from the 1939 film The Wizard of Oz, as spoken by Dorothy, played by Judy Garland.
Toto, I have a feeling we're not in Kansas anymore.
$1 million is likely a reference to the line from Dr. Evil, played by Mike Myers, from 1997's Austin Powers, International Man of Mystery.
We hold the world ransom for $1 million.
The pen is mightier than the sword is a well-known adage from the 19th century, but was also notably featured in Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade.
Henry, the pen. What? Don't you see? The pen is mightier than the sword.
Like Dust and Crops is likely a reference to the line spoken by Han Solo, played by Harrison Ford, in 1997's Star Wars Episode 4, A New Hope.
That's from the Navicomputer.
You kidding at the rate they're gaining?
Traveling through hyperspace ain't like dust and crops, boy. Without precise calculations, we'd fly right through a star.
Prodigal Son is a reference to the biblical parable of the prodigal son, told in the book of St. Luke, chapter 15, verses 11 through 32. Delved too deeply is likely a reference to the line from the Fellowship of the Ring film, as spoken by Saruman, played by Christopher Lee.
Moria, you fear to go into those mines. The dwarves delved too greedily and too deep.
Survivor is one half of this reference. For a number of achievements, they come in pairs, with each achievement named one half of an adage. For example, the pair of achievements, the bigger they are, and the harder they fall. In this case, the pair is Survivor and Eye of the Tiger, a reference to the 1982 song Eye of the Tiger by the band Survivor. Artful Dodger takes its name from the character of Jack Dawkins, also known as the Artful Dodger, in Charles Dickens' 1838 novel Oliver Twist. Fists of Fury is likely a reference to the 1972 martial arts film Fist of Fury. Roger Dodger is either a reference to the 2002 film of the same name, or perhaps a play on the line spoken often by the battle droids of the Star Wars prequel trilogy.
Roger, Roger. Roger, Roger.
Bag of Holding is a reference to the magic item in Dungeons & Dragons that is able to hold much more stuff in it than it might appear to be able to. Here, we're starting with the Dark Knight, whose name is most likely a reference to the modern title of the DC Comics superhero Batman, as used in Christopher Nolan's Dark Knight trilogy. Gortoal is referred to by a different name in the files, with his models being contained in a file named. This is obviously a reference to the Rancor creature from Star Wars Episode 6, Return of the Jedi, which Jabba the Hutt has imprisoned under his throne, and which the hero, Luke Skywalker, has to kill. Some striking parallels there for sure. The plated Sorok is also referred to as something else in the files, with his assets being under the name of this. Something that makes sense, considering the red and gold on his armor, and visual similarity to something like a Roman centurion. For some miscellaneous details, something of note is the fact that the sound effect, labeled level up 3.wave, in the files for Infinity Blade, is the same sound as when a checkpoint is reached in Shadow Complex. There are also some unused items in Infinity Blade 1, one of note being the lightsaber, something that obviously took influence from Star Wars, and that wouldn't appear until IB2. While we're in the files, let's take a look at some of the locations. For one, the textures for the tanks seen in the dungeons that hold the God King's buds are called this, where Bacta is a reference to the healing substance from Star Wars, and as seen in Episode 5, The Empire Strikes Back. If, like me, you wondered what that book that Alessium was reading in his soul cell was, wonder no longer. Looking into the game files, we come across this texture file, which is familiar if you recall it from the iceberg video. Looking at the top are the textures corresponding to the book, which looks to be called Island of the Lost Treasure. Complete with a map, it could feasibly be a children's book of some kind. And now, for a special intermission, story time with the God King.
Privima de los Secralitana Prosvodu. Tukaisoku tia sia erini, tukamos prosvodu munzi, Preciana gasta capano, inilibing vatranduma emes gaslitana. Emes combra camero, asol parapo, la casa di titoletana. Tanosto, furi me consilia vitana provincia, agasta godo, comunzi suvicitana kiokas. Vorimas vitana dumaratana, emes camero. Se exitus fido, sia prospodos, crosse caravitana.
Special thanks to the God King for being so willing to read that for us. Now, back to business. I think it also worth mentioning that the inventory screen you see in IB1 wasn't always present. Referring back to the original IB1 trailer from before, you can see that this version is much different. Interestingly, one of the statues in the background does appear later in the series, with this one showing up in this Clash Mob setting from IB2 and 3. The bird symbol in the back also reappears on the floor of the elevator that takes you to the God King. And that's all for part 1. For any videos in this series, if you know of anything I missed, definitely let me know down in the comments. With that said, for some final notes, I now have a functional Instagram page that you can follow. For now, it just has a bunch of old posts from back in the day, but going forward I'll post about new videos and other novel IB stuff I come across. Also, if you haven't seen it already, I've been collaborating with Infinity Blade Studios on a series of videos about major characters in the series. Our video about Rith was just uploaded, so go check that out. Links, as always, will be in the description, and with that said, I'll see you mortals in part 2, and hell take us all.